Please do so.
Please introduce yourself to the court.
I'd like to say, first of all, that I'm an undercover police officer with the Special Investigative Division of the Midland State Police Department. And as I'm currently part of an ongoing investigation, the name I'm going to be using is Mickey Keenan. That's spelled K-E-E-N-A-N. And that is the name that everybody involved in this case is going to be familiar with me as.
And that is the name that Mr. Chase Covington would know you by from your time at the Gambling Commission.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Keenan, please give us a little background. How did you come to be involved in today's case?
Well, after being a traffic cop for a little while, I kind of elected to go into the Special Investigative Division, where they saw me as being kind of an out-of-towner, and they placed me in the undercover wing of the Special Investigative Division. They quickly then assigned me to go undercover at the Midlands Gambling Commission, where I would pose as an auditor, and I would look for white-collar crimes, particularly corruption and bribery.
And did you find any evidence of corruption or bribery?
No, I started in 2013, but not until late 2014 did really anything pique my interest.
And what happened in late 2014?
That was about the time where the Gambling Commission opened up requests for casino proposals, as they were willing to offer a new license. I kind of sensed this as an opportunity for somebody to try and slip something under the table, so that's about when I perked my ears up. And then when I was actually sitting in on a meeting with Chase Covington, I overheard a phone call that really, well, made me wonder.
And are you aware who was on the other end of that phone call?
At first, no, but I was later told that it was Avery Bancroft who was on the other end.
And what about that phone call piqued your interest?
Well, Avery Bancroft was calling and went over the speakerphone and said that Avery was willing to do whatever it takes and grease the wheels in order to...
Objection, Your Honor, to hearsay as to the statements of Avery Bancroft.
Your Honor, this is an exception to hearsay under Rule 803 D2E, as it falls under a statement by a co-conspirator to a opposing counsel, or to opposing witness.
And the co-conspirator was Bancroft and Covington?
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, if I may.
It's overruled.
Yes, Your Honor. Would you like me to repeat the question, Mr. Keenan?
Sure.
What about that conversation that you overheard piqued your interest?
Well, Ms. Bancroft came over the phone and said that she was willing to grease the wheels, and she was chomping at the bit. And at that point, it kind of piqued my interest because, you know, there were some pretty innocuous statements, figures of speech, but it was Chase's reaction to them which really set me off.
Okay.
Chase, well, kind of snapped at me and snapped at the phone and said, Avery, I can't talk about this now. I'm with a staffer. And figures of speech generally aren't anything that, you know, you can't talk about with a staffer, but that's when I decided I needed to maybe look into Avery's Casino a little bit more.
What did you do next?
I figured I had myself pretty much covered at the Gambling Commission, but I needed some sort of eyes inside of the casino, inside of Avery's Casino. So I looked through some of my records in my dealings at the Gambling Commission, and I ran into a name over and over, and decided I wanted to reach out to her, and it was Corey Hyde.
And who is Corey Hyde?
Corey Hyde's Avery Bancroft's executive assistant. I encountered her several times in my work at the commission, and she came across as kind of impressionable and somebody who might be willing to accept some of my arguments and kind of see the light and maybe wear a wire for me in several meetings.
So what did you do?
Oh, I got in touch with Corey, and I invited her to a meeting where pretty quickly I revealed to her that I was undercover, and that's about when she agreed to help me and be my eyes and ears inside of Avery Bancroft's hotel.
What happened next in your investigation?
Since Corey was Avery's executive assistant, it was really nice because she was able to set up meetings between myself, Corey, and Bancroft. And so that was the first thing that I had us do. It was on March 31st.
And did you attended the March 31st meeting?
I did, and Miss Hyde actually wore it right there.
What happened in that meeting?
That meeting was pretty suspicious. It kind of, well, affirmed some of my suspicions. Avery Bancroft had already bought the land for the casino, even though the proposals hadn't been finalized. Avery, once again, said that she was chomping at the bit, ready to give somebody money.
I must raise my objection to hearsay as to the statements of Avery Bancroft, Your Honor, if I may be heard.
Yes.
opposing counsel wishes to bring these statements in under the co-conspirator exception, they must at first lay the foundation that there was a conspiracy for there to be a co-conspirator, which is something they need to endeavor to prove throughout this case.
Well, does the indictment itself raise the specter of the indictment is the state versus Bancroft and Covington?
Yes, Your Honor, but the trials actually have been separated, and there is no direct connection as them being co-conspirators until proven to the fact finders of today's trial.
Okay.
If I may respond on
Yes.
those grounds, Your Honor. Pursuant to case law State v. Owens, the statements of Avery Bancroft can be conditionally admitted by Your Honor, even though they are hearsay, as a co-conspirator. And those statements, along with corroborating evidence, can then be assessed at the end of the trial in a separate objection, and you can rule whether those statements will be admitted or excluded as their whole.
If I may, Your Honor?
And I think I'll do that at this point, and I'll give a limiting instruction to the jury that they're not to consider them if in the end they are not received.
If I may make one final statement, Your Honor?
Okay,
The
please.
case law he's referring to is on page 5 of the rules of evidence that have been tendered to you, and it also states that in order for this conspiracy to be established, there must be evidence aside from testimony that says such a conspiracy is occurring. Without other evidence to corroborate the fact there is a conspiracy, all of these statements are to be excluded under the hearsay rule.
Okay, I appreciate your argument, counsel, and I will I'll look at this over the break and then make the pretend break, and then make a final decision. But at
Yes,
this
Your
point, I will permit the witness to testify regarding these statements, and then we'll perhaps give a limiting instruction to the jury.
Yes, sir. Would you like me to re-ask the question?
I actually think I'm good. Avery said over and over that she was willing to, just chomping at the bit, waiting to give somebody money, which was
Okay.
suspicious language to me. And this really kind of confirmed my suspicions, and I decided to have Corey set up a meeting between myself and Covington, along with Bancroft and Hyde, to try and get all parties in the same room.
Did that meeting take place?
It did, on April 13th.
What happened in that meeting?
Well, in the April 13th meeting, there was heightened security, so Corey couldn't actually wear a wire. We went inside and sat down, in the suite of a hotel. Corey left to use the restroom as we were talking about business proposals, but then when Corey was out of the room, the topic and tone of the conversation switched.
How did it switch?
It became very intense. You had what was once a conversation about conference rooms and seats at a concert venue. It's changed to being all about the money.
So how did you react to that?
I sensed the tension in the room, and I decided that this was going to be a very pivotal moment. I decided to pick up a napkin and a pen to try and get some sort of physical evidence. And I slid it over to Avery Bancroft. She apparently did not see what I was doing as I was sitting next to her, and dabbed her forehead with the first napkin, but I slid another napkin over to her and repeated one of Chase's statements.
What did you say?
I said, Chase had said earlier, it's all about the money, and I repeated that.
And how did Miss Bancroft react to that?
Miss Bancroft picked up the napkin and wrote, yes equals $, followed by 150K.
And Mr. Keenan, would you recognize a copy of that napkin if it were given to you in court today?
I actually would.
The record reflects I'm approaching the closing counsel. What has been marked as prosecution exhibit 1.
No objections, Your Honor?
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
The record reflects I'm handing the witness exhibit 1.
Is
Would
that,
you like a copy?
yes, please.
Mr. Keenan, what have I just handed you?
This appears to be a copy of a napkin, which, is basically the same napkin that I saw in that hotel room.
And it appears to be substantially the same as the last time you saw it?
Yes.
And it's a fair and accurate copy?
Yes, it appears so.
So what did Miss Bancroft write on this napkin?
Ms. Bancroft wrote yes, followed by an equal sign, and then a $.
Objection, Your Honor? Testifying to facts, not evidence?
Your Honor, if I may respond.
Yes, please.
I'm simply trying to establish that it was in fact Miss Bancroft that wrote on this napkin before I admit it to evidence, so that we have some grounds as to where this came from and who wrote on it.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
What did Ms. Bancroft write on this napkin, Mr. Keenan?
Well, she wrote everything on the napkin, the yes, the equal sign, both numbers, and the Ks and both dollar signs, as well as a slash.
At this time, Your Honor, the prosecution would like to move prosecution exhibit 1 into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, it will be received.
So after Ms. Bancroft wrote, or what was the first thing Ms. Bancroft wrote on this napkin?
She wrote yes equals a dollar sign followed by 150K.
And then what did she do?
She slid this napkin over to Chase Covington.
And how did Mr. Covington respond?
The situation was very tense, and without speaking, Mr. Covington slid it back.
So what did Ms. Bancroft do?
At this moment, I was kind of proud of Chase, but Miss Bancroft kind of picked up the napkin, kind of scribbled on it, and when she placed it back on the table, it had the slash through the 150K and a dollar sign followed by 250K written on it.
What did Ms. Bancroft do after that?
She slid it back over to Chase.
And how did Mr. Covington react?
Mr. Covington looked at it and then picked it up and put it in his pocket.
What happened next in the meeting?
Well, that was about when Corey came back and some room service I had ordered earlier to try and confirm and have some solid corroborating testimony, particularly of the persons in that meeting, arrived.
And who was that person that arrived?
It was a bellhop carrying a cheese plate. I think his nameplate said D. Del Sesto.
Thank you. And what happened after Mr. Del Sesto arrived?
Well, Chase was not happy with that. Chase thought it was a private meeting and pretty promptly stormed out.
Was that the end of the meeting?
Essentially, yes.
What happened next in your investigation?
Well, after this, I had received over some of my software that was monitoring Chase's phones, that he had had a phone call with Miss Bancroft. And so I went and asked him if they'd been talking recently.
How did he react?
Apparently this was a little bit too on point, and Chase became very suspicious of me. Chase kind of snapped at me and said, I don't know what you're up to, which, I mean, I was up to something, being an undercover officer. But it seems like he was on to me, and he said he was on to me. But still, he agreed to meet with Avery on the 16th, which was going to be the meeting to ultimately make an exchange.
You say going to. Did that meeting take place?
A meeting sort of took place. It was me, Corey Hyde, and Avery Bancroft in a suite at the hotel. But, you know, the agreed time came and went. And then Chase never showed up.
What happened?
Well, I mean, this case was one of my biggest. This is a big deal for me, so I admittedly got a little bit heated. This is a big deal when, you know, you're getting stood up by the person you've been investigating for the past 18 months. And I was getting frustrated, and so I left the room to use the restroom.
And what happened while you were in the restroom?
When I was in the restroom, it appears Avery Bancroft left. I came back in, and Avery was nowhere to be found. I grilled Corey kind of harshly about this. I assumed that Corey knew where her boss had gone, but she didn't. And so I then sought out, I kind of ranged throughout the hotel trying to find them.
Were you able to find either Ms. Bancroft or Mr. Covington?
After a long time, I was able to find Miss Bancroft in the VIP lounge of the casino.
Did you approach her?
I did.
And what did you do or say?
Well, Ms. Bancroft had a fairly dingy briefcase with her, but she was sitting at a blackjack table. And I confronted her because this was a big deal for me, obviously. And she said that the deal was dead. She said that she hadn't gone through with it, which, to be frank, I don't actually believe, because she was carrying she had a briefcase with her, as well as her oddly calm demeanor, especially for someone who had just been quite nervous and quite agitated about the bribe.
What was the next step of your investigation?
Well, at that point, I considered us to have enough evidence together, and we ended up submitting for warrants, particularly for video feeds, as well as search warrants and arrest warrants.
And did you see any of that evidence?
I saw a video of Mr. Covington walking into a bank and making a large cash deposit, And
Objection, Your Honor. Testifying facts, not evidence, may I be heard?
Certainly.
If there is evidence that would show Mr. Covington making a deposit into his bank with a large sum of money, then I feel like it would be especially probative for the jury to be able to see that in today's trial.
Counsel, do you have that evidence?
Your Honor, that evidence will come up later in today's trial. If you would like to offer a limiting order at this
Uh-huh.
time until that evidence comes out, that would be completely fine with us.
Okay, and I'll overrule your objection. This witness can testify to what his part of this was, and then we'll see if indeed there is no video. That will certainly be a challenge for the prosecution, so,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Then I was later able to view Mr. Covington's bank statement, which corroborated the video.
And what date was that video from?
That was from April 17th, the day after the vote was supposed to take place, in which Mr. Covington voted for Bancroft's Casino.
Thank you, Mr. Keene. At this time, the prosecution has no further questions for this witness.
Okay, just 1 second. Okay, counsel, this is your witness, would you
Yes,
like
Your
to
Honor. At this time, I would like to re-raise my objection to the lack thereof of a video for the jury to view. It is the defense's good faith belief that the prosecution has no such video, as it was not presented to us in captains, nor has any mention of it been given to us from the prosecution.
Okay, well, at this point, what I have is a witness who says he viewed the video, and the jury can give it what weight it deems, and you will be permitted to note its absence in your closing if you choose.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Kevin Peasy for the defense. May I proceed?
Yes.
Now, you had spent almost 2 years undercover at the Women's Gambling Commission, correct?
18 months, yeah.
And the first year and a half, you saw nothing at all that made you suspicious in any way.
No, I didn't find any evidence of white-collar crime or bribery or corruption.
Your investigation was kicked off by a relatively common phrase, grease the wheel.
It was more the reaction of Mr. Covington, but I guess the reaction to that phrase, yes.
So just to clarify, was that phrase that was the trigger for this investigation?
That phrase, which was the trigger to the reaction, which was the trigger to my investigation.
And going forward, now you said on direct that you had used Corey Hyde as your informant.
I did. Corey was very helpful.
To get Corey Hyde into a meeting, you had lied to her about your identity.
I'm an undercover police officer, so yes.
You then sat her down and let her know that she would be assisting you, hinting that you had some kind of evidence linking her back to crimes that she may or may not have committed in the past.
Yes, that's pretty standard in an undercover operation. Sometimes you have to bluff a little.
So are you testifying today sometimes an undercover officer has to lie blatantly about criminal charges to get people to cooperate with their investigation?
Sometimes you have to bend the truth in an undercover operation in order to get people to reveal things or cooperate.
Now, I'd like to fast forward to the meeting on the 16th.
Okay.
Mr. Covington never showed up to that meeting,
Not in the hotel room, no.
and you were incredibly unhappy with that.
Of course, yeah.
You would say you were pretty well invested into this case at that time.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Covington not showing up to that meeting threw a wrench into the entire investigation.
Yes, this was supposed to be where we were exchanging the money.
So just to be clear, you never heard Avery Bancroft mention anything about a bribe.
No, I only saw him slide napkins back and forth.
So
With
you never heard Chase
offers.
Covington mention anything about a bribe.
No, I just saw him pocket a napkin.
You never
with a bribe
saw
on it.
Avery Bancroft give Chase Covington money.
No.
And you, throughout your entire investigation, never once saw Chase Covington accept a dime from anyone.
No.
This time, Your Honor, the defense has no further questions.
Okay,